Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Uncovering Hidden Healing. I'm your host, Arletha, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Every week on this show, we go looking for healing that's been hiding in plain sight, in our traditions, our ancestral wisdom, and practices and modalities that most people never heard of, but they're changing lives every single day. So, this is what we do here: we uncover what has been buried, we shine a light on what has been overlooked. And season 3 is all about ancestral healing. It's that idea that healing is not only something new we have to go find, it's something old we have to remember. Our grandmothers knew things, their grandmothers knew things. And in this season, we are going back episode by episode to uncover what was always there. Now, if you caught episode 2 with the incredible Mickey Barzuto Green, we talked about how the body holds ancestral memory, how trauma and medicine both get passed down through the lineage and stored in the physical body. So if you missed that one, go back and watch after this. But today we're going even deeper. Today we are talking about what I like to think of as the original record keeping system. So before Google, before libraries, before any of that, there's a field, an energetic field that holds the vibrational history of every soul across every lifetime, including the ancestral lineage running through your body right now. And the woman I have brought in today has been reading from that field and helping people heal from it for years. This conversation is going to take you somewhere you have probably never been before, and I cannot wait for it. This is going to be a great conversation. Now, some of you are going to recognize my guest today because she was one of the most beloved conversations we had in season 2. Anne Marie Pizarro joined us to talk about sacred geometry and the divine patterns of love and connection. And our community absolutely lit up for that episode. But I told her when I invited her back, I said, Anne Marie, season 2 was the door. Season 3 is where we walk all the way through it, right? So Anne Marie is a visionary entrepreneur, spiritual guide, and founder of the BodyEnergyConnection. She brings over 15 years of experience blending her background in nursing with her deep expertise in the Akashic Records. And that combination is extraordinary. She is not just a spiritual practitioner, she is someone who understands the body clinically and energetically. She offers Akashic Records readings, transformative coaching, and holistic healing. And she creates sacred spaces for growth through her courses, workshops, and her mystical products. And she's going to talk more about those. So, what I love most about Anne Marie's work is that she meets people where they are, whether they're brand new to this or have been on the path for years. And she helps them to tap into their intuition and help heal what needs healing and align with their souls actually came here to do. So Anne Marie, welcome back to Uncovering Hidden Healing. I'm so glad you said yes to this conversation. And, before we dive in, tell us a little bit about, who you are. I said, I did the bio, but a little bit more about who you are and what are the Akashic Records.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That was such a great introduction. I don't even know what to add to that to make it even sound better. It's like I'm pumping myself up here. And I'm just so delighted to have this conversation with you, Arletha, because the ancestors do show up in the Akashic Records. And when I started getting Akashic Record readings in 2007, I got a chance to connect to the energy of my ancestors. And I was like, what? You want me in this field? This is so different from nursing. This is so different from what's known. Why are you asking me to do this? And it had something to do with leftover unfinished business from my lineage, which we'll end up talking about at some point here. Doing the Akashic Records absolutely changed my life. It was the pathway that actually allowed me to retire from nursing. And I do this full time now. So I read the records for people. I train people in how to read their own records and the records of others. I just recently launched the Akashic Light School, which is what I call a modern day mystery school for helping people navigate everyday life challenges. If we can't use this body of work to help us make decisions, know ourselves on an everyday level, why do we even have access to it? So it simplifies the pathway for everyday people out there to know how to work with themselves, because that's part of our purpose on earth.
That's right. So, I love that. I mean, and when you think about it, the idea that there's a field that holds the entire vibrational history of a soul, that's like so amazing. And it's not that different from what our ancestral traditions have always said. Like, the ancestors are still present, the lineage is still speaking. We just didn't have that particular language for it, but it's, very similar. So,
Yeah.
and I always find it interesting, like in your case, like how people find their gifts, and like, or how their gifts find them. I don't know which way that works, but
Yeah.
like connecting like to the theme of our season, the title of the episode today is rooting. Because in the Sable Women framework, the healing path at the heart of my work and my book is rooting is the first stage. You have to go to the origin before anything else can grow. And the Akashic Records feel like the most profound form of rooting I can imagine.
Absolutely.
So, like, how do the Akashic Records connect to ancestral lineage specifically? Like, how does the field, hold information about people who came before us?
Absolutely. And that's the really beautiful part, because I don't feel like we can talk about that until we understand at the foundational level what the Akashic Records are. Is it's elemental. So when you look at the Vedic studies, they often talk about when Source first created this plane of existence, he created 5 elements, and it's air, water, fire, earth, and the Akasha. Akasha is that 5th element. So that's really why it's as foundational to the roots of who we are as it is to our ancestors. And what I find that's really beneficial for us to be able to connect to the Akashic Records so we can understand our ancestors is that we agree in every incarnation to enter into a lineage. So when we enter into a lineage, that allows us to be able to connect to the ancestral line for that lineage, for that lifetime.
Yeah.
And that means that every time we incarnate, we get a choice to go into a different lineage to work with that particular ancestral line. So there's a great likelihood that we've all had some overlaps around lineages. We've all had lineages that have been tied to white people, Black people, Asian people, Indigenous people, because that's the whole journey of really understanding who we are as a soul and how we actually connect to the different ancestral paths. When we access the Akashic Records to understand the lineage that we're in, we often discover what are some of the soul contracts our ancestors had for that life. Were they able to fulfill it? And if they weren't, was that passed down the lineage for further generations to heal and evolve? There's a lot of ancestors who have some very core fundamental contracts, like contracts around freedom, contracts around expression, contracts around being able to have the opportunities to do what they want in the body that they're given, in the gender that they are, in the life that they have. When we work in the Akashic Records, sometimes we find out these historical roots that, you entered into a lineage where your ancestors' core root lessons were around those big things like freedom, opportunities, love, healing even. So when we understand that, we now get a chance to recognize what's the unfinished business that our ancestors have brought for us to do. And how do they feel even about us and where we're at in our life as it's related to the big picture of the overall lineage. And I have to tell you that some of the most prevalent themes that show up in readings is gratitude. The ancestors are so grateful that we're living life and getting to have the opportunities they didn't get to have.
That's right.
Choose to be able to live differently than what was set before us, because every time we choose differently, we evolve our lineage slightly. We heal the things so that the future generations might not have to experience those lessons.
That's right.
So we're very bridge between the past and the future.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful, And so I think I mean, you said so much so far, but I think that usually when people think about like what was passed down from their ancestors, they usually think about the things that are like we have to heal. So like
Yeah.
the trauma, the grief, like the patterns that we're trying to break. And that's true. I mean, it's real and that's true, but I also feel like our ancestors passed down things that sustain them. So like the resilience, the spiritual attunement, the gifts, the protective wisdom. And like you said, the gratitude and all of that was passed down too. So what do you think, what does the Akashic field hold about like how our lineage that was passed forward was meant to sustain us? Like what ancestral medicine or protective wisdom kind of shows up in the records?
Wow, that's so deep. That's such a deep question. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 examples here. Let's say that you had an ancestor who experienced a lot of trauma and suffering. Maybe it came from an ancestral line where there was oppression. And so in that line, what was molded in that line was belief in themselves, resilience, determination, the ability to not give up. And then it shows up now in the current family lineage. And now that inner desire, that inner resilience, it's like, where did this come from? Especially if it wasn't modeled to you by, say, your parents or your community. Where did that drive to do more, to do better come from? It actually came from your ancestors. So another thing I would talk about is intuition. Intuition is a gift that's passed down from each member of the family. So there's a good likelihood that your ancestors before you went through spiritual training to be able to develop intuition. Survival required you to have a very high level sense of intuition because that was often the thing that determined your safety or your potential to be exposed to pain. And so that level of intuition is passed down the line so that we can have that knowledge now to listen to the messages from our ancestors. So they had developed that ability so they could listen to their ancestors to help them survive. I feel like our ancestors developed in us beforehand is tied to bigger visions. Some of our ancestors were inventors, creators, writers, revolutionaries, even heretics. And so this gets passed down the line, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing something as revolutionary, like writing a book on ancestral healing. Why did that come to you, Arletha? It's a good likelihood that your previous ancestors, they were building up the knowledge, and they knew one day we're going to have a soul that's going to show up in our lineage, and we're going to transmit all this wisdom that we've collected through different generations. And she's the one that's going to bring this out into the world. And this is our contribution. So in a way, so many of us get to have that opportunity to do the things for our ancestors that they didn't get to do. And this is encoded even in our Akashic records, what we agreed to do for them before we arrived here. So it's deep, right?
Yeah, that is super deep. Thank you. I mean, that's just like, wow. And I'm totally with you. I think that's great.
And I would say this, that, in the world that we have right now, I think because of the way society is set up, there are more mental health issues that exist now in this generational period, because prior to this time, maybe our ancestors were so dang busy just trying to survive. They didn't have the luxury to feel things like depression, to process trauma. So now it's coming into our lifetime, and we get to do that really big emotional and mental and spiritual work to upgrade the lineage so this becomes something less in the future.
Oh my goodness, you're so right. Like you were saying, when I think about it, like mental health wasn't even a topic, like when my mother was growing up, just one generation ahead of me. It wasn't even a topic. It wasn't something that you spoke about, like your trauma or any of that. So it's just amazing, like just like literally in one generation, how that became so prominent. And like you said, to offer the opportunity for the healing of it, although we know it existed in the lineage, existed and with the ancestors, this is like a first opportunity to really, try to heal it, to name it and heal it. I think that's so important that you said that. That's really cool. Yeah, yeah. So when I think about like, I want to kind of talk specifically about Black women, because this is like the community that we're speaking to most directly, not everybody, but most directly. So when you work with Black women and across their Akashic records, what do you encounter that's distinct? Is there anything distinct? And, what are Black women's lineages carry that you see kind of consistently?
I have to take a deep breath around here
Yeah.
because, I've been very blessed to work with and attract a lot of incredibly smart, passionate, talented Black women. For some reason, more Black women than Black men. And I think it's because of their openness to understand themselves and their position in their lineage. So there's 4 things that I have observed show up in these sessions for Black women. And honestly, the first one is love.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I have met so many amazing women, Black women, who really struggle with love because in their ancestral lineage, either they weren't loved properly, they weren't validated to receive that kind of high vibration love that they deserve, they weren't chosen, or it was taken away from them. So in a way, love was sometimes used as a thing to control Black women. And this is a season where I'm seeing these women are just rewriting the game. They're like, okay, my ancestors didn't get that. So you know what? I'm going to give that to me. And I'm going to level up to a high frequency that if you want to be with me, you got to match my energy. I'm not going to fold or sacrifice or betray myself just so I can have this, because that's what my ancestors did.
That's right.
Another thing I've seen for Black women is around financial power, money. Mm-hmm. In many different lineages, Black women just were not given access to money or financial power. It's crazy because actually women as a whole are much better with money and being able to manage complex things like a household, like a business. And so what I've seen for a lot of Black women in the Akashic Records is when they understand that this is a core soul lesson that their ancestors didn't get, they give themselves permission to expand their financial literacy, to become financial investors, money managers, accountants. I have never met more Black women who are bookkeepers and accountants than this season of my life. I'm like, wow. Right. They're also commanding a presence around being able to invest and appear in places that traditionally Black women just weren't allowed. Fields of investing, that's right, leadership, being in the corporate suite, like a CEO, COO, CFO, seeing more Black women in the fields of technology, science, investing. That's where I'm seeing they're shifting something that their ancestors didn't get. Another element that I'm seeing is education. For a lot of Black women, they now have access to an educational track, and they are blowing men out of the water. I have met more PhD level Black women who are doing such incredible things. But here's where I see Black women struggle. Because in their lineage, there is a soul contract around struggle and work. So I see so many Black women working their asses off to just try to maintain and keep up with the status quo. It's like they have to work harder. And that's the thing that I feel like they're really here to transform in the lineage.
That's right.
And that's powerful, because it's not to say that just because you change something, you become lazier in the future. If not, if anything, what you're doing is through your efforts, through your dedication, through your willingness to and be something that your ancestors didn't get a chance, you improve your way of life for you, for your children, for your grandchildren. And that's going to be something where maybe 3 or 4 generations down the line, they're going to look back and they're going to say, you know what? It was Mama Arletha
That's right.
who made this thing possible for us.
That's right.
Mama Arletha who created this book that
Mhm.
gave us access to our wisdom. It was Mama Arletha who made me feel like I could do anything.
That's
And
right.
that's what I'm so happy to see for Black women and this change that's happening in our society, because a lot of women don't realize this, especially Black women. You agreed to come down to this planet during the time of 2 things. Number
Mhm.
1, the rise of the technological renaissance.
That's
And let
right.
me tell you, technology and AI don't
Mhm.
really see gender.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the second thing is, a lot of women don't realize they decided to come back during a time of the rise of the feminine power. Watch, try to hold us back.
Right.
Try.
Try it.
Like, watch. That's
It's,
basically what I see women doing, just going, watch.
yep.
It's
That's
exciting.
You're right. Wow, you are right. I mean, you said so much, and that's why you are so right. You can just feel the energy. And like I said, a lot of people I know are like going through a lot of difficulty with relationship because you can see it. It's like, no, we are not doing that patriarchal thing anymore. So you're going to either vibe with us or you're not. So it's so interesting. And like in my book, it's funny that you say that, like, Mama Arletha, so I look back on my grandmother. So I have a chapter called My Grandmother's Dressers. And I'm there because I have to have their physical dressers in my house right now because, it was just always like a point of departure for me. But in my grandmother's dressers, like I talk about some of the things that my grandmothers dealt with and like how it was different. And they told me it was going to be different for me. So like one of my cousins was getting divorced and we were young, I guess like in our like late 20s, early 30s. And my grandmother was like, oh, don't leave your husband. She stopped herself and she said, you know what? You don't have to do that. She was like, my generation, we didn't have any other options, but you've got options. You can get a job. You don't have to do that. And I love that so much when she said that. She stopped herself from, what she was used to or what, the limitations that women had and said, you don't have to do that. You can do this. You can do whatever you want, actually. It was that. She talked about not being able to have a bank account in her name. I think it was like before the 50s. And so I remember as a kid going to the bank with her. My grandmother went to the bank, I promise you, at least once a week, but I felt like we were there like every other day. Like she would get dressed up and go inside the bank and check on her money and all of that. And I was like, you know what? Again, watching this, as a child, like you were saying, women now can be in charge of their own finances and very astute at it. Like you said, a lot of accountants and things like that, just really investors and everything. And then, just remembering, just like my great grandmother owning land, which was in Mississippi, like at the turn of which was an anomaly at that time for women to own land, and so these stories become really important. Our ancestral stories become important to who we are. And like you said, what are we leaving when we become ancestors? What are we leaving to our descendants, and how we are healing and looking at things? So you said so much stuff, but I just wanted to kind of put my, own lessons and things that I've learned there. So, I know. Oh, go ahead.
That's huge for you to share that your great grandmother owned land in Mississippi, of all places.
Exactly. And it's so crazy because my family now wants to sell it. And I'm like, how? Because I'm stuck in she couldn't love, it was almost impossible for a Black woman to own land. And she did it. And it's clear in her name. It's so clear. And you want to sell it because you want a couple of coins now. Like, why? It's so like,
right there is something that honestly could be turned into like a historical landmark these days, right?
Historical landmark. We can have senior center or something, for a place for senior housing. We can do so many things. So yeah. So, I mean, I think at this point, people really want to know how the Akashic Records work. So without identifying anyone directly, can you give like an example of what it looks like when you access somebody's Akashic Records? Absolutely. And you see something ancestral that's affecting like their physical and emotional health, and kind of like how you go through that. So what that looks like.
Well, what I first want to relay is It's safe to access your Akashic Records.
Okay.
It's available for us now, where in previous time frames and previous lives, the Akashic Records were held for people who gained the knowledge through initiation, through, higher level types of trainings. So it wasn't as accessible. We needed the high priest, the high priestesses, the scribes to get us information. But that goes through their personal filters. And why we have access to the records now is because our sentience has actually evolved. There's a level of responsibility that as souls, we've shown through time and proof that we can handle access to higher knowledge. And when we know who we are, why we're here, what we're here to do, let me tell you, you don't waste time when you know your time on earth is precious. If you know you're here to accomplish this, this, and this, you're going to want to get it done so you can spend the rest of this time enjoying yourself, right?
That's right.
So whenever I access someone's Akashic Records, it always starts off first with consent, permission. I never access people's Akashic Records just for fun or to see what I can get to try to, take advantage of them or manipulate them. That's just not how I roll. When I work with Akashic Records, it's really grounded on an agreement that we made as a soul contract before we even came here to do the work together. So I acknowledge that every person I've ever worked with, we already have that contract to connect to the records. Once we're in the field of the Akashic Records, we are able to access this Akasha, this frequency. And boy, once we tap in, it's like things just start to come to me like this for people. And at first it'll show up as a word. Sometimes it'll show up as a little video flash. I'll hear it. I'll actually feel sensations in my body. And when we're tapping into information that's specifically tied to the ancestors, sometimes the ancestors will show up around a person and they'll give me like a little snapshot of, okay, your ancestral council just showed up. And that council could be a combination of your parents, grandparents, cousins, other people who are part of what we call your soul cluster group. When ancestors deliver information in the Akashic Records for people, sometimes we can directly connect to the ancestors in the form of what we call Akashic mediumship and get message directly from them. Now, that's not my forte. I did not go into the Akashic Records with a very active mediumship abilities. That actually developed in the Akashic Records because people kept asking about their ancestors.
That's right, yeah.
I was like, okay. So you guys are going to have to show up in a way and deliver information that doesn't feel so out there or weird.
That's right.
So when the ancestors want to specifically relay, like this is part of your soul's purpose from your ancestral line, they'll often speak in like, we're so glad you're here. We're so grateful that you're here. We're so proud of you and what you're doing because we didn't get a chance to do that. So we're advocating for you. What I also find is sometimes the record keepers, when the ancestors have a very specific and important thing to relay because there's a weight to it. Like, okay, you're currently in this season of your life. You may only have X amount of decades or time left. You got to hit this soul goal for us. They'll often bring that pressure by repeating things in threes. They'll show up in your dreams. They'll find a way to connect to you because that's actually part of your soul purpose. You made an agreement with your ancestors to fulfill something in that lineage in that time. So they're going to start to show up for you and in ways that you can't quite ignore. So sometimes they'll show up in your dreams. Sometimes they'll show up in your thoughts. Sometimes they'll be brought to you by a messenger, like a family member, or maybe like an animal or a spiritual symbol. So the ancestors, they find a way to relate to you. And sometimes, like when my ancestors show up, sometimes they come with a lecture. And I'm like, oh, I know it's you.
I know you're going to say something.
Yeah. With a lecture. All right, just tell me what I'm not doing.
Right. I know you're going to say something. That's true.
So just recognize in a way that signature, that signal, because the more you're curious and open to seeing, hearing, receiving, That's when they gauge, okay, she or he is ready. She wants to initiate contact. And what I find is that if we're willing to be a receiver for our ancestors, they'll be more than happy to guide and help us.
That's right. That's right.
Us, we have to ask, but that's the part where most people are afraid to ask for help, and I don't get that.
That's right. Exactly. I think that, before I get into the next question, I think that sometimes people are, taught to be scared of ancestors, like they're like ghosts or something like that, right? And so I remember being like a little kid, maybe like, maybe not that little, maybe like 12 or 13. And my grandfather had passed, and I remember like not wanting to go in the room where he was. I was like a little bit of freaked out, right? And my grandmother said, "What is wrong with you?" She was like, She's like, "Did your grandfather ever hurt you when he was alive?" And I was like, "No." She said that he's not gonna hurt you when he's with the ancestors. He's just gonna help you. Like, it was like her way of saying, like, helping me on my 12, 13-year-old mind understand, that just because he had passed did not mean he was going to stop being good to me, So yeah, that was very helpful, because I think sometimes people are scared, of
Rightly so.
Yeah, what they don't know about. And yeah, so we know that there were definitely are beneficial and helpful ancestors. And then there are those ancestors who, live the same way they lived on earth, which may not be so positive, right? So,
That's right.
Yeah, so we totally get that. But it's like, really being open to the ones who are going to be beneficial and the ones that are going to help you. So, but let me ask this question. So how does ancestral trauma stored in the Akashic field kind of show up in the body? Like, is there a connection between what's recorded energetically and what people actually experience physically?
Yeah, I'm going to have to say yes to that. And what's showing up here is a very clear image around birth. Many ancestors died during childbirth because they either did not have access to medical care, that was the karmic outcome, or something happened and they did not get the support they needed.
Right.
So I have had the pleasure of working with women who know their ancestors really struggled with births. They're scared. They're scared because they're like, oh my gosh, is this in my Akashic Records to also experience this? And most recently, I had a client who was so freaked out by her ancestral birth trauma that we did many sessions before her actual birth.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was the record keepers talked about how her body was physiologically able to give birth. She was in a different time frame, and she was so scared that something would happen to her. Well, she had a really tough birth, really tough. She had wanted to birth at home. That was not the outcome. She ended up going to the hospital. She ended up having to have a C-section. And after that, we had a session and she was like, well, what happened? I thought I was going to have this great birth at home. Why did I go into the hospital? And the record keepers answered it in a very gentle way. And they said, you being able to have access to medical care, you being able to have the C-section safely, you being able to survive along with your child, balanced something that your ancestors did not get. So no matter how you could have prepared for this birth, no matter what kind of hypnobirthing you could have done, this was always going to be written as an outcome because you needed to stabilize and balance an ancestral karma. When she got that, she really understood, oh, I actually was able to survive this because my ancestors who didn't knew that one day I would come, I would need their help. And when I would need that help, I would have access. So me having access served all her lifetimes of sacrifice. So when she got that, she stopped judging the experience as if she did something wrong. It was like transformative. And what we realized is you being able to acknowledge that you were the one to provide this balancing for your ancestors helps your daughter in the future not carry that birth trauma. You remove that from her cells because you decided to be the one to transmute that. That's powerful work there. And a lot of women don't realize that. They just think, oh, I'm the one that's stuck with depression. I'm the one stuck with being overweight. I'm the one that's stuck with diabetes. I'm the one that's stuck with divorce or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's really your opportunity for your lineage to balance something that was a friction, a trauma, a pain for your ancestors. And yes, your body does hold that memory. Your body actually holds the exact thing for you to go through to change something in the genetic lineage. So there's a lot of really brave, ballsy, courageous women that don't get the credit for what they go through because they just don't understand that I actually wrote that in my records to experience. I wrote that for my body to be this way.
That's right.
And that's the part where it's like, wow, that lets us take ourselves off the hook.
That's so powerful. I'm about to tear up because that was just so powerful and so strong. Like, yeah, people like you were saying, like, oh, I want to have this home birth, but you had a healthy child and you are here, you are healthy and you are here and the child is here healthy. So it's kind of like that was the win. That was the triumph for not only for you, for your ancestors. Forget the home birth, like you said. I think that is so beautiful and powerful. I mean, and it really, for me, connects us directly to what epigenetic science is showing us now. It's like what our ancestors experience can literally alter our gene expression that gets passed down to us biologically. So the Akashic Records and science are basically telling the same thing. They're telling the same story from different directions, right?
They really are.
Yeah. So like, you kind of said that in the story that you just told, again, so powerful, but like, what is the difference between what we inherited ancestrally and what we can consciously release through Akashic healing? Like, so the process of release. So like you gave an example of a story, but normally like how do you see this? Is that normally how you see the process of release?
Very much so. So let's say you came from an ancestral lineage where part of the soul lesson is I have to struggle really hard before I can make it. I've got to work really, really hard before I can make it. And so that soul karma, that is embedded in the genes, that's embedded in the Akashic Records, that's embedded in the field. Lineage is down, you show up and you enter the Akashic Records with somebody like me. And we discover, listen, you start these projects and they just never take off. Why is that? Oh, well, because your ancestors carry this contract that they have to struggle till they make it. What if we dissolve that contract? What if we actually create a new story that I've already made it? So the amount of work I need to do supports that awareness that I've already made it. And if I've already made it, that means all the efforts that my ancestors ever did to try to make it, we've made it now. And we actually changed the Akashic story that says, I have to struggle before I make it. And so when you as the person says, I'm going to change this for my lineage and actually write that every action that we take leads to us making it. So inaction or distraction, any of that we give that to doesn't change the outcome that we already make it. So when that starts to shift, it changes your whole entire behavior. You start to look at elements like relaxation and self-care as a necessary part of making it. And now, instead of talking to yourself in a negative way, like, oh, you're not working hard enough. Oh, you're not enough. Oh, you're disappointing your ancestor. You start to change your thoughts that we've already made it. And so you have gratitude towards it because it's a stacking process, And if you don't take it, if you choose, you know what, I don't want to do this work in this lifetime. It's too hard. I don't want to do it. Then it transfers to the next person in that lineage. It could be your daughter. It could be your granddaughter. But there's someone in the family, call them the black sheep, that needs to be the change agent. And so you can absolutely change that in your Akashic Records. As a matter of fact, once I discovered that the record keepers could help us change those stories, that's when I said, I don't want to wait.
That's right.
If I know that I have these contracts from my lineage, I have to prove myself to be worthy. I have to work really hard to make it. As an immigrant family growing up, what I heard was you have to work 10 times harder than your white counterpart in order to be accepted, approved, and to achieve. And that's when I realized, oh, so as long as I'm working for someone else, there will always be this condition or ceiling over my head around that approval. But perhaps the reason why I came with that soul contract is because my ancestors were really like, listen, Anne Marie, we really believe that you can work for yourself and you're here to do that for yourself. So we're going to put that energy for you to break this contract so you can live a different way. And I got that. I was like, oh, let's live a different way.
That's right. Like, I'll take that. I'll take different way for 100. Yes.
And out of everyone in my family, I'm the one that lives the most different way from everyone else.
That's right.
And that's given my ancestors that opportunity to live through me in a way they didn't get to. It's really awesome. It's like you're bringing your whole entire team with you, and you're like, you know what you didn't get, you're gonna get in this life through me. So let's have a good time. Let's enjoy it.
That's true. Yes, right? True. I definitely agree with that. You said so much, but I agree with it. I believe like our ancestors also live, like you said, vicariously through us, because there's some of the things, even like we're talking about healing, but it could be things like they didn't get to go to school. They like to study and learn and read, and you get to go to school, so they get to experience that. Yeah.
How about chocolate? How about
chocolate? Exactly.
We're like, oh, we couldn't have the chocolate because this was reserved for royalty.
That's right.
Now in this life,
cocoa, but we couldn't have.
That's right. In this life, they're like, not only can you have chocolate, you can feel that pleasure and not be guilty because you agreed to experience that in this life.
That's right. That's right.
So guilt actually doesn't serve us when it's related to what we think our ancestors want from us.
That's right. Wow. Oh, that is so powerful, man. Like, it's like you have like so much. I know. It's just like it makes so much sense. Yep.
For real.
Yeah. So I want to ask you like a story question. You told stories, but some more. But kind of share with us like one of the most powerful moments, that you've had in a session or a breakthrough that stays with you as like the clearest example of what ancestral Akashic healing can look like. Any kind of story, de-identified, of course, but anything from your practice, anything that you have experienced. And that was, you gave us one with the birth. That was a lot, but any others?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to use my grandmother here in this case, because if you notice behind me, I have a tapestry of Mary. I have a statue of Mary, and I'm not a religious person at all. But I was initiated into the lineage of Mary at a very early age. So my grandmother's name is Marianita. And in our family's line, there's only like one Mary every lineage. I'm the Mary in my lineage. And there's nobody else who's a Mary after me. So my daughter decided to bring that name as part of hers. When my grandmother started bringing me into this work with Mary, I didn't realize it was more than just prayers. It was all about what are women here to do as leaders, as healers, as teachers, as spiritual guides. And I fought that for a long time because my grandmother was very much about, you need to get a job, you've got to be professional, you've got to support yourself, you got to bring pride to your family. And I was like, check. Okay, I've made all the checks.
That's right.
Why am I not content? Why don't I feel like this is really it? And what I realized through my grandmother is she had this really deep love for Mary that was tied to service. And so when I started to tap into the field, the energy of Mary, especially through my own name, I realized I was like, oh man, we made a soul contract for service in this life. So we're here to serve in a totally different way. And that's why we do readings. That's why we do these trainings, because it's fulfilling something from my ancestral line of these women who are teachers, who were spiritual guides. They just never got a chance to express that because they were always boxed into the mother position. But once I got into the records and I realized, oh, this is actually part of my soul's purpose to support the divine feminine,
Mhm.
And I started to get into that work where nobody else in my family was doing that work, because that was what I agreed to. It was written in my records to actually work with women. And that was just something that she didn't get to do. But through the friends that she had, she did serve them.
Mhm.
Through teaching me in a way how to pray, how to listen, how to connect, that was the part that felt like it was a very ancient practice.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
was taught to her, and it was taught to her mother beforehand. And it was that action, that devotion to spirit, that
Mhm.
I feel like I've been able to cultivate in my life, and
Right.
also continue to support women in cultivating in their lives.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it did. It did. And actually, this might be a continuation because I wanted to ask, we want everybody to walk away with something practical that they can do, right?
Yeah,
I know people are sitting and thinking like, okay, like what is a practical thing that I can do for
wow.
myself now? Like maybe entry level, maybe someone who's never worked with Akashic Records before, like, what can they do for themselves? Yeah, so of course they should call you for in-depth and really awesome reading and work with you. But is there anything that they can start doing for themselves?
Absolutely. There's actually two things I would encourage anybody who wants to work with the Akashic Records and the ancestors. We're specifically talking Akashic and ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have an ancestral altar, set one up,
Right.
because it's a respectful thing to honor those before you and what they've gone through to mold and shape you into the person you are. So an ancestral altar is what I would encourage anyone to start off with.
Yes.
And the reason why is once you create that altar, you're honoring the life, the energy, and the frequency of the ancestors you can reach.
That's right.
And from there, you can start tapping into the ancestral field in the Akasha
Mm-hmm.
by having either a picture of that ancestor in your hand that you're looking at, or you have them firmly in your mind. And
Mm-hmm.
then you practice what I call automatic writing. And
Mm-hmm.
automatic writing is a way for you to have dialogue with the higher realms, the ancestors, by asking your conscious third dimensional egoic self to just step aside and sit next to you so it can watch what's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
through the process of automatic writing, you can call in an ancestor,
Mm-hmm.
ask them if you can dialogue with them. And if they say no, don't be upset. They might be busy. They might be having a party. And you're like, oh, you pulled me away from my poker game. What? So they're doing things in the other realms. Most people think that once you
just sitting there.
just like smiling, I'm like, no, it is a full experience on the other side. There's so much that happens. And when your ancestors get a chance to come back together, let me tell you, they're playing, they're partying, they're doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So when you tap into them, you better hope that they're available for you, because if they are, then they can come in. And what I encourage people to do when they're communicating with the ancestors in the Akashic field is to just start off with a very simple, easy to answer question. Like, do you have a message for me?
Mm-hmm.
From there, just let yourself receive without editing or reading until you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'll find is by asking that question yourself, do you have a message for me? Do this. Just write down what you think their message is.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask yourself to step aside, let yourself be in this neutral position, ask them the question again, do you have the message for me? And then don't look at your paper and just let yourself write.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you compare these two, you're going to find one has a much deeper dialogue. And sometimes the wisdom is so simple that it's just a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find interesting, Arletha, is when the ancestors will say things like, we love you, people will be like, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot, right?
They waited to transmit to you, they love you, and you're disappointed that they're not telling you what the PIN number is to their bank account, where they hid that special necklace that you hoped you were going to get, or where is that extra hidden stuff, cash, whatever, that they didn't get a chance to tell you that you're hoping they will this time. They want to gauge first, are you even available to receive them?
Can you hear us? Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me now? Right.
Right. Can you hear me now? Because most people are like, no, I got some important stuff to ask. And it's like, whoa, hold up. If you can receive that they love you, they're gauging that bridge to be able to start the communication process. So you you got to hold back the impatience a little bit.
Yeah, no, I love that so much, because for me, that makes it so real and just approachable, So, like, to start this relationship, you don't need to be a trained practitioner. It's something that you can, start doing for yourself, really just listening and cultivating this, relationship with this person who is now an ancestor. So, I mean, I really love that.
Well, and it's a memory, right?
Right.
It's a memory thing. You are here to remember that not only were you able to converse with them in this lifetime, you've conversed with them in other lifetimes, in previous lifetimes. So what makes you think that just because they're not physically here, you can't dialogue or connect?
That's right. Yep.
Right.
I love that. I love that. All right. So I'm going to go a little bit, to a kind of not far, but, so maybe just if you can, do you know if any like African and African diaspora spiritual traditions relate to the Akashic field? So I don't know, like, do you see them in the Akashic field, or is there any type of relationship, between like, African and African diasporic like spiritual traditions?
Oh, very much so. I find that when people come from the African diaspora, their ancestors will often speak in symbols that may be tied to certain countries or tribes that they're from. Everybody receives a little bit differently. So for me, sometimes as a visual expression, they'll flash to me like what these ancestors may have looked like at this particular time. Or what they'll talk about is some of the trainings, the initiations, the knowledge that they gain from that culture and how they're passing it on. I find it so fascinating because I have a client who, and she's a rare client because in one of her Akashic record readings, the record keepers let her know she had these shabtis. Shabtis are like the little people. In Egypt, they would line the tombs with these little clay figures because these shabtis were supposed to do spirit work. And in our session, they said, well, you have these shabtis that are available for you that were left over from your ancestors. Like they didn't use it all. So they decided to give you a certain amount for you to work with. So work with them in this life. And that was so fantastic because nobody else got that. And I was like, I don't
right.
So that's how it seems to show up. Sometimes what's really interesting is when we start to look at past lives, past life influences, especially historical ancestral roots, often start in Africa. Pretty much everybody starts in Africa.
Yes.
That's where I love that link for all human beings to understand where we actually originated as a people.
That's right.
Kind of makes the whole racism thing.
It's really
head, honestly. Like, is this really legit?
Exactly. It's really silly. Yep. No, you're right. So, thank you. And that's something I write about, in the book, the Ancestral Roots book. It's like the knowing has always been there. The traditions have always held it.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes the ancestors are bringing it up as a modern day answer for certain problems. I've heard too many times in the Akashic records, listen, the food is not the same. Soil is not the same. In order for you to eat in a way that your ancestors ate, you've got to go there to actually eat the food that's grown in the soil with the same seeds that was transmitted from your lineage, because it's a different quality of foods.
Oh, absolutely.
So incredible when that shows up.
No, I think that's true. Like, and if you just like travel, you even notice like the difference in the food and like your connection to the food. So not only the freshness and how it tastes and, lack of, chemicals, but just also your connection, the type of foods that you're eating and like how people eat in particular places. I know for me, when I go to Ghana, like that's huge, and eating yams and eating some of the same things my ancestors have eaten, I do feel super connected and I can feel it transforming my body and, actually, so we can even take it a step further there. So not just eating and it's fresh and feeling it, but I can feel, the energy of transformation. So I think that's great. And thank you, Anne Marie, and it's powerful. So, like I always have the same question for the end, because it always like it's, it's going to be, I like our culmination for today. But, it's like, if there's one thing you want every person watching today to walk away knowing, about their ancestral lineage, about the Akashic records, what it holds for them, and what is possible, like, how the Akashic records help ancestral healing, like, what do you want people to know today? And don't skimp, like, give us everything you want us to know.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that how your life is designed, how you've shaped your life, has all been influenced by what your ancestors have done before you, from the choices that you have now, to the way of life, to the way you think, the way you feel about yourself, all the opportunities available for you. That is available because of what your ancestors did for you.
That's right.
And so it's written in your Akashic records for you to be a bridge to the higher realms, to be able to speak to the angels, to speak to spirit. It's also written for you to be able to communicate with your ancestors. And the reason why is each and every one of us are a living library. So every decision we make, every action we take is being written actively in our Akashic records. And that's the reason why when I encourage you to set up an ancestral altar, whenever I pass my ancestral altar, sometimes I'll just see my grandmother and I'll just say, Salamat kaayo, Mama, which means thank you so much, grandmother. And just acknowledging that to them makes this lineage evolve and heal. Because the reason why we're still connected to them is because we're writing the present and future stories for all of humanity, not just our lineage, but the entire collective. So if we could have this awareness that what we're doing to elevate humanity is part of the ancestrals' purpose, all their struggles, all their challenges, all their traumas are coming to us to be able to heal and evolve in this lifetime. Let's do that for them.
That's right.
Let's do that for us. Let's do this for the future, because we are at a really important precipice in time and in humanity where we are consciously aware of this. So we get to intentionally heal our lineage.
That's right.
Through love, through purpose, through sacred devotion. And I just invite each and every one of us not to waste that, but to be in gratitude for that, because one day we'll be ancestors.
That's right. That's right. So, oh man, that was powerful. Thank you. Thank you. We are all going to carry that information. That was beautiful, Anne Marie. Like, thank you so much. You came back for season 3 and, you went even further than we did in season 2. Like, I'm so grateful, so before we, go, how can our viewers connect with you? Like, learn more about your work or book?
Well, I just launched the Akashic Light School, and really that's the most easy way for you to learn how to read your Akashic records so you can start to heal yourself, heal your family, and also be of service to others. So this is a school that I just started. It's a modern day mystery school. It's the school that I wish that I had when I started my Akashic Records journey. And it's a way for you to not only elevate your life, but to also elevate the lives of others and those that you are actually assigned to read. So we're in our founding members opening right now. I'm inviting people to join at a very reduced rate because I want to be able to help our planet heal. That's what I feel like the Light School can do for each and every one of us.
That's right. Yeah, that's so exciting. I mean, oh man, we got to join. We got to learn. I think that's beautiful. And guys, all of Anne Marie's links are going to be in the show notes and pinned in the comments. So go find her. I mean, it's just so beautiful to have Anne Marie with us today. And if this episode opens something in you, the opening is your lineage calling, so follow it. And while you're in the comments, you could also pre-order my book. So Ancestral Roots, Awakening the Sable Woman for Health, Healing, and Wholeness. It's pinned right there too. Everything Anne Marie shared today about what the Akashic records hold, what the ancestral lineages pass forward, what our roots know about our bodies. That is at the heart, of my book and like I said, my work just throughout this whole time. So it releases May 8th, and I want you to have it on your hands in that day. So grab your copies now. So to our viewers, thank you so much for being a part of season 3 of Uncovering Hidden Healing. We are exploring ancestral healing all season long, and every episode is building towards something really big. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell a sister who needs to hear this, and mark your calendars for May 8th. It's a very special day. So until next Sunday, your lineage knows things. Today, I hope you heard a little more of what it's been trying to tell you. So take good care and see you next week.